So welcome to part 3 of HO scale model railroading on a budget, and in this part we're going to cover DCC and some of the DCC accessories. Not control stations, because we already talked about that in part 1. So one of the things that you'll need sometimes when you're converting an engine, especially one that may be older, over to DCC is you may want to upgrade the lighting. So to do that, generally you're going to need LEDs. Some of the ones that you may use even to add, I even use this in Athearn Genesis models just because they didn't come with LED, are surface mount LEDs. And generally you can find these kind of at your best price on eBay. And they're super tiny and usually want to allow about 2 weeks because they usually ship from China. So they do take a little bit to get to you, probably longer now. For LEDs, I do also like the Digitrox bulb LEDs as well. And those are all pretty inexpensive. Speakers. One of my favorite brands of speakers is TCS. They have a number of different sizes that are out there. These are all usually around 10 bucks or so, maybe sometimes a little bit less if it's a smaller speaker. Pretty good quality there. Not much to complain about at all with these. ESU sometimes is on, it really depends on what it is. Some of their stuff, like their 28mm speaker, would be relatively inexpensive and even sometimes a little bit less than the TCS, but then they also have some of these kits where this is about $20, but it's also going to fit a number of different applications. We'll get these out of the way here. So we're going to talk about decoders, and we're going to kind of start from really, really bad stuff and work our way up to the good stuff. Probably the worst possible decoder that you can find in a brand new model is this right here. And we'll zoom in so you can see what it is. I don't know how well that's zooming, but that is the Bachmann logo on there. These decoders are what comes in a lot of those engines that have a blue box on them and say that they're DCC already out of the box or DCC on board. These are crap, and the reason that they're crap is you usually have to turn the engine up to about half throttle before the thing will even start to move, and by that time it's humming like crazy. Now, if these are crap, why do I still have them? Well, a couple of reasons. A lot of times they'll come with these connectors on them, which I can use. I can chop off this connector and reuse this for another type of decoder, or sometimes maybe I'll need to adapt a 9-pin style decoder over to an 8-pin for a model that may have an 8-pin plug on it. So you can use this pigtail here. The other part that you can use is the decoder itself. Obviously the motor control on it's crap, but you can still use it to light things. So you can use it for DCC controlled lighting, and I have some rolling stock projects that I want to do that I plan on using these. So that's why I'm keeping these. And there's a lot of things that you may find that you want to recycle too. So those are crap. Kind of the next most crappiest thing out there is Digitrox decoders. They're just not good. The motor control is not good. They are relatively inexpensive, but they do not perform well. I bought these. I had about 6 or 7 of them when I first started doing DCC, and I thought it was the greatest thing until I bought some other brands and realized how terrible these are. Their sound decoders are especially terrible. Those are just awful. Don't buy them. No matter how cheap they are, don't buy them. Now, something pretty good that's on the budget side of things here, and it doesn't really have any logos on it, but I can tell you what it is. This is an NCE decoder. So NCE, they don't actually make any sound decoders, which is not necessarily a problem, but all of their non-sound stuff is very good. It's also very easy to set up and has a lot of nifty little controls that you can use in CVs to get an engine to run pretty smoothly, especially at lower speed. They're also very well priced. And with a lot of them, you can even add a keep alive to them if you want to. One that I don't have an example of to show you would be QSI. QSI is one of the oldest style of decoders out there, and something that you'll find in a lot of models that first started including sound around the mid-2000s. The first batch of Broadway Limited locomotives that came out used QSI. I believe even some older Atlas models used QSI. Generally, the motor control is not too bad, but the sound usually is pretty crap. So a lot of times if you buy a model that has those in there, you may want to find yourself updating the sound. Even right now, if you really actively wanted to buy a QSI decoder, you probably couldn't. They haven't been out in a long, long time. So, moving on here. TCS. TCS is an excellent value. They have a number of non-sound decoders that are out there that have all the TCS motor controls outstanding. It's some of the best in the business. Their non-sound decoders are not expensive. You can get them with or without Keep Alive. And Keep Alive is something that, you know, they make even the little modules separately. TCS also makes a number of different little cables and connectors, lots of little DCC parts that they make, and generally they're all very well priced. They also do sound decoders. Now, their sound decoders are not the best as far as performance or sound, I would say. Their Steam decoders I really like. I just do not like their interface for programming. Some people may like that. You know, their sound, no sound decoder I would say is going to be a value item, but their non-sound stuff is definitely a good deal. Oop. Good thing I ain't using this one. So another one we have here, and this is a very popular company that you'll find in a lot of models even now, is Soundtrax. They're one of the older ones out there. Soundtrax's non-sound decoders are pretty good, and again, just like TCS, they're not priced too badly. I think you'll find superior performance on TCS and also on ESU for the same cost. They're certainly better than Digitrox for sure. Tsunami 1 decoders, or their sound decoders, you may find those out there. This is actually what this is here. This is a Tsunami 1 decoder. They're now on Tsunami 2. You may find a lot of sound or Tsunami 1 decoders out there just because everybody's upgrading the new decoders. I would not jump on that bandwagon at all. A lot of Tsunami 1s, while the sound may not have been too bad depending on what model it is, a lot of the horns were pretty terrible. And also I had a lot of problems with Tsunami 1 just having kind of a poor electrical footprint. The models used to kind of go on and off a lot of times, something where they seemed like they needed a lot more capacitor in them, or needed a Keep Alive, which is something that you can wire up to them, just not the easiest thing. But I would stay away from these. I think they're still overpriced for what they are. Continuing on with Soundtrax, they did release a decoder that was kind of meant to be in a value segment, which is called Economy. I really like Economy. You know, for something that's not $100, I think they're pretty good. And a lot of times you can find some of the older Economies for a little bit less, so that's a pretty good deal. Tsunami 2, it's considered their top tier product. It's definitely not a value product. So moving on here, ESU, again, just like Soundtrax, not really a value brand. However, they do have some offerings which are pretty good. Outside of their Lock Sound program, they have something called Lock Pilot. So the Lock Pilot is their non-sound decoders. Some of the best low-speed performance out there. It's probably the thing I would consider the most comparable to TCS. TCS and ESU are going to have the best motor control. Soundtrax, you can do some programming with it, or sometimes you'll get lucky out of the box and it's pretty good, but I don't think they're as easy to dial in as what ESU or TCS is. And the prices on them, you know, again, still in that $20 to $30 range. The option available also to put Keep Alive in. Now on the sound market, interestingly, they just made a recent change to ESU version 5. So the version 4 decoders you may see out there for a little bit less, though I really haven't been seeing that at all. It still seems like people are selling those really, really expensive. And these were around $88 when they were brand new. I would say if you're finding these for 60 or 70, snatch them up. That's a really good deal. But it doesn't seem like they're really out there. And this is one of the boxes to the newer ESU. Now, what I like about ESU in general is that you can buy one decoder and then you can reprogram it as many times as you want with different sound sets. So from a value perspective, that's kind of a unique ability about ESU that other brands do not have. When you want to change the sound set, you got to buy a different decoder. Now, how you move those sound sets or change them or program them is with one of these. This is an ESU Lock Programmer. This is one of the most valuable DCC accessories that I have, especially if you have a lot of engines that run ESU. This will pay for itself 10 times over. You can even run and test your engines with one of these. Generally, they're around $160. Sometimes there may be sales on them, or perhaps you can pick one up secondhand. But I highly recommend these. You can do a limited amount of CV programming with non-ESU decoders, but if you plan on doing anything with ESU decoders, you kind of really have to have one of these for sure. It also allows you the ability, if there's a newer sound set that comes out, you can actually upgrade an old decoder. So that's a really handy feature. Kind of a nice retro piece here. This is what's called a QSI Quantum Programmer, and this will allow you to program pretty much any QSI decoder that was ever made, including the newer Titans. And it's very similar to the ESU Lock Programmer. It has a USB cable, power supply, track output. You really can't find these around anymore, but this is really the only thing that you can use to reprogram a QSI decoder, which really for the time was ahead of its time. This is kind of like a prehistoric ESU Lock Programmer. These are really only good with QSI. They don't really do too much with anything else. And of course, you can't really find the software online anymore for these. Fortunately, I cashed in on a server dump just before the original QSI site went down. I have all the files, so I can set this up with any future computer that I get again. And another super valuable tool is a HO scale or N scale speedometer. This works with both. You've seen this in probably about half of my videos. I use this. This is the easiest thing that you can possibly do to speed match your locomotives. They're only around $70. They're worth their weight in gold. I use this thing all the time. And it's really inexpensive, super easy to use. You literally just flip the switch on. And within a couple seconds, it's ready to go. If you don't happen to turn it off, it will automatically turn itself off, which is a pretty handy feature because I always constantly forget to turn this thing off. So as with most things, when it comes to value products, there are good things and there are bad things, and hopefully I've showed you some of the differences here between them. Again, it would be impossible for me to cover everything that's out there, and you know, I've experienced everything that I've talked about here has been based off of personal experience that I've had with these products. So I'm not just formulating an opinion about Bachmann decoders being bad. They are bad. You don't have to take my word for it, but you know, it'd be better if you did and saved yourself that trouble. So hopefully this gives you a brief overview of some of the things that you can buy to be involved in HO scale railroading that don't cost a fortune. There is good stuff out there that is inexpensive, and sometimes you have to be a little bit patient with it. You may have to search and search and search for months on eBay. I do it all the time. There's a lot of locomotives that I'm still looking for that I've been looking for years. And sometimes it just takes that long. So there is if you want something on a budget, a lot of times you do have to exercise a greater deal of patience. It's really easy to let that money in your pocket kind of burn a hole, and you just want to hit the button and go ahead and just buy something now rather than waiting for it potentially at a cheaper price. So that's about it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. Again, this is probably not for all of my viewers. A lot of you already know these things or know them in a much greater detail than what I do. This is kind of meant for somebody who's saw trains or likes them or wants to get into them, but they're seeing a lot of these other videos out there, or they're going on to a model railroading site and they're taking a look at the prices of these things and they're just really getting sticker shock. So there are options out there for you. I can't say that you can do model railroading enjoyably at any budget. You know, there's a little bit of a budget out there that you need. There is some money that you need to put into it. I can't say that you'll be fully satisfied buying a $10 engine and a bunch of $2 freight cars that you found at a show. They're probably not going to run very good. But if you spend a little bit of money, not a whole lot, there's some quality things that you can get. So that's it for this one, and we'll do something in the future here, maybe a part 4. But that's it. See you guys.